Hello everybody, this is Don again, and I'm going to go through some more footage here and just add some more input to the San Bernardino investigation that I've been trying to do from my own little home. And seeing how we don't have dash cam footage, we have to try to make sense of things on our own. Once again, here's our neighborhood, East San Bernardino Avenue. This is the final shootout point of the SUV in front of a vacant lot. That's very convenient to have a shootout in front of a vacant lot. There was a blue recycle bin. You've seen a lot of the videos I've made. Vehicle was traveling from the west and heading east. You can tell right now that this Google picture was taken in the morning, because although north is this way, so I'm facing southward here. I've rotated the camera around because this mimics the shot of a helicopter. But take a look at the shadows. The shadows are pointing west. That means the sun is in the east. Later in the day, most of the live footage and all the shots that we have, shadows are on the other side, meaning the sun was setting or it was heading down in the west. Okay, so I want to point out one thing I may not have made it clear. Here is the residence house where the second camera was located, and this is 1694 East San Bernardino Avenue. This is the place where later in the police scanner, way after the shootout was done and we had multiple officers and lots of folks all around parked in this area, a report came across the police scanner that there was a pipe bomb explosive device found here. Earlier it was reported on the scanner that it was thrown out of the vehicle. Okay, so let's just do a little math right here. Here's 1694, and let's see if I can find my calculator here. Okay, let's do our little bit of math. Okay, we've got a vehicle that was proceeding down the road. It was most likely going about 70, but I'll just use 60 miles an hour for this brief calculation. So there are 5,280 feet per mile, and this thing is going 60 miles an hour. That means it's going a mile a minute, and you divide that by seconds, 60 seconds in a minute, and it tells you that the vehicle traveled 88 feet per second. Okay, so from this point to this point, we have the vehicle somehow rolling down a window and tossing out a pipe bomb that rolls back into this area. Okay, if you look at the scale here on the map, this is 100 feet. So 1001, 1002, somewhere around here is 2 seconds. So about a second and a half, okay, that vehicle is traveling. That's how much time he had for the window to go down and toss something out of that front window. 1001, 1002. Have you seen a window go down that fast to be able to throw something out? Not only that, he then travels 1001, 1002, 1003, about 3.5 seconds maybe, to this location, and the window is back up again. Why? Because windows cannot be shot out if they're rolled down, and we've seen in all the pictures the SUV window was shot out. Just take a look real quick again at what that footage looked like. I'm going to actually improve this or show some of this footage here a couple of times, but you see this is the man shooting that particular bit footage, and I don't know if you saw, you could tell it there, so we'll go back and play it one more time.
Oh,
I'll try to go in closer, but if you look real close here, you can see that there's reflections of the day glow on the windows. The windows are still up, and here's a close-up of that same shot. Window remains up, it hasn't changed, so we know the calculations there just goes to show that there's no way that that pipe bomb could have floated through the window and out into this yard in that space of time. Okay, so let's take another look at footage. I've explained this in multiple videos. Here you see the muzzle flash. This muzzle flash happened about a second after the smoke first started going out. Maybe not quite a second, but we saw the explosion. Here's evidence of the smoke already drifting off, and then we've seen the flash. Okay, I've covered that multiple times. I want to go back to the end of this footage again, where we see the close-ups of the vehicles here. Okay, I've done multiple research videos on this. Is the SUV, okay, parked behind this black car, which is a marker for us in the street. And let's see where that footage is. Here's that black car. Okay, there's a white car that was parked here. It took off, it drove around, and it was actually up, ended up moving further up the road here, closer to the SUV. And there's the white car that was behind it. There was this one SUV parked. I'm going to take another closer look because somebody brought up, in fact, thank you again for all the comments, because several people have really helped me look into this further. And so I went ahead and I downloaded that footage here so that I could look into something somebody had mentioned to me about this SUV. So taking a look at that, all I did was download the clearest version I could get, and now it's zoomed in, so it's slightly pixelated here, but we'll see how well it plays. And what I want to take a look at is the actual, I slowed it down a little bit. You can hear it's going to sound kind of funky because you're going to hear the shots and the sirens in slow-mo, but let's just take a listen. Okay, I don't know if you've noticed it, but there's two officers right here standing outside of this white, I presume, San Bernardino unit. And of course, if we had dash cams, all this would be a lot easier to see. Here's our black car, and the SUV is a little not quite showing up in this shot, but we'll give it a second here. Okay, as you can hear, there's multiple firing barrage bullets happening right now. These officers do not seem to be involved whatsoever. In fact, they decide to go ahead and get back in their car, not really ducking from any bullets or anything. We see a unit in front of them. Oh, we also see an individual sitting here to the side, watching, not doing much, but watching. There's the officers getting in. Looks like it's all done here, I guess. Let's just go ahead and move up closer and see what else we can see. Wonder who's doing the firing. Who's shooting all those rounds? Because we don't see any units, any people out there ducking behind anything that we can see firing on the SUV. But take a close look at the SUV. Here's the front door. This is where Farouk supposedly exited the vehicle. You can see part of the shattered remains of the blown out glass. We've seen multiple images of that. Do you notice any of that kind of dark wholeness from the back window? Somebody did point this out to me, and I've looked at it multiple times, and from what I can tell, there appears to be a blurriness, almost like the reflection that we talked about earlier from the vehicles of the day glow. Okay, this isn't the best footage to look at for this, but seeing how we do not have dash cams from San Bernardino or any other involved police authority at the time, this is what we have to make do with. I did do some research about San Antonio and as far as releasing their dash cams, and I know that there's been legal battles about that in the past. Perhaps this could have been why maybe this particular area was chosen, because they have ruled that they will not release dash cam footage for the sake of individuals and audio that could be picked up on it and privacy and things. Of course, we have nothing to worry about that here because there, of course, there's only one audio, and that's a barrage of bullets. So hopefully we'll actually one day see the real dash cam footage to discern whether that window is actually intact or it's blown out. It sure doesn't look like it's blown out to me from this angle. Okay, here's one of the close-ups I wanted just to show you. You see that this window, and we've seen other photos on the other side, this other window are the same. Nobody has shot out or in through these windows here. They're both up and still reflecting. This obviously shows that it was up before it was blown out. Okay. Now, with all the questions that have been surrounding him, I also want to thank, I can't remember the person offhand who led me to some information that I found very, very unique, very telling. Okay, yeah, this was the other shot, same vehicle, a window on the other side shows that it's still up, reflecting. This particular angle, one question here again, this is the other helicopter side.
Driving up and down the street. Now we understand that the vehicle...
Interesting that these particular mercats, or bearcats, however they want to term them, are driving around in this area. I mean, San Bernardino is a very huge area, and they already seem to be located in the general vicinity of where the shootout was going to happen. That I find a little bit curious. What I find most curious, though, is when they roll down East San Bernardino Avenue, they're going to go around the corner, and when they finally go down, you'll see no police units on that street at all. So who fired up the front of the SUV? We have no clue. We have no dash cam footage, no body cam footage or pictures of anything happening, of an assault happening on that side where the main barrage of bullets.
Somewhere in this area with bullet holes in it. We did see a person being taken into custody. We also heard of an officer down in the area when the shots were fired. You can see a lot of police activity out here, many of the intersections, and you can see this area right there. You've got...
Okay, on an earlier video, I recorded that this intersection at Mountain View and East San Bernardino was ordered to be shut down, and then later told to hold again, and this was about 5 minutes before any of the barrage of shooting happened. So there was no units, no civilians going down the street.
Vehicles in there, guns drawn, officers pointing in a direction. The issue is we have yet to see that car. We have yet to see that vehicle that they've been chasing. There's that SWAT vehicle, so we're going to follow him in. Usually in these situations, we can be a lot lower and we can identify these areas a lot better. Right now, because of the flight restriction, because the officers from the sheriff's department don't want us injured, don't want us to be interfering in their investigation, and right now, there might be the apprehension of this suspect. Right now, they're basically keeping us at a distance. I think there may have been some wires crossed out here. This might be the vehicle they've been talking about, right there with the door open. It may not have been an SUV at all. And nope, they're passing that up. They're going by that one, so that's probably not the car they've been talking about. We're going to keep an eye on this vehicle right here that's going to be making the approach to that SUV. If you have any other information for us, maybe you might be hearing something a little different. We're hearing on the scanner, officer down, so we're definitely going to keep an eye out right now.
Okay, there are no units, as you can see, on that street. So who is doing the firing?
We're looking in the neighborhood. We have yet to see that vehicle that they're talking about.
Do you see the, well, there's another, we saw so many vehicles.
Right.
Are they all in this area,
Orbit.
Stu?
We gotta go in orbit. I have it behind a tree. I'm sorry, this is such a fluid situation right now. I'm working with our pilot. We can't make those quick moves that we're used to out here because of the fact that we are so high. Oh my gosh, yeah, definitely a suspect down. I'm not sure if we're going to want to put that on television right now. There's that SUV, definitely bullet ridden. I understand.
Okay, and then one more thing I want to point out. If you listen to the scanner and audio, and it's on the other clip, just Google it or YouTube it, and you'll hear there was questions about the third shooter, okay, and a detainee. If you listen to that scanner, you actually hear them go out and arrest 3 different individuals to the south of this whole incident scene. There's one on Cooley, there's one they say on Almond, but Almond has kind of a different name depending on where you are on that street. And then the final one is near a Wells Fargo bank in a parking garage. There's never any resolution as to how come those detainees were let go. I believe the one that was on Cooley was in a church of some kind and was handed over to a marshal, but then again, we've never heard the full story about that. Okay, so here's something that I've come across because an individual recommended I take a look at this, Operation Gladio. I've never heard of it before, and I wish I had. It would have put a lot of things in perspective over the last 10-20 years that we've seen happening in our modern geopolitical era. Okay, here's what Operation Gladio was. It started in immediately after, actually even before the end of World War II, and the main threat at the time was Russia invading Europe, And the U.S. and all of its allies were worried that they would not be able to withstand a Soviet invasion, and they feared the communists were going to continue to roll over Western Europe. So what they did is organize. They came up with a plan which actually mimicked something the Nazis were doing, and that was to organize leaders throughout Europe that would be able to maintain a resistance and help the Allies should they need to re-invade and retake Europe from the communists. So they had not only caches of weaponry, they had organization financially, intelligence-wise, to keep people together until the Allies could come back in to re-liberate them. What had happened was, over time, the threat of the Russian invasion slowly dissipated with the escalation of weaponry and nuclear technology. And the mission of what we term here as Operation Gladio, which is really a stay-behind army, and it was given different names in different countries. Italy was the more notorious because of things that happened. So Gladio sort of becomes the overall catch name for these secret services. With their mission against the Soviet Union evaporating in the late 80s, they were found to be useful in other areas of society to help maintain a political order that would keep and would prevent any political insurgency of the communists. And this meant developing different strategies of actually manipulating the public. So let's just take a look at this in depth here a little bit with one video clip. An individual made a documentary. His name was Alan Frankovich, which aired in the UK, and it was called Gladio, about a 2.5-hour documentary. I've watched it. It's a little difficult, but it's very telling. The only thing is that most of it involves individuals from overseas who of course speak different languages, so there's continual subtitles, which are a little harder. But anyway, this gentleman, Alan Frankovich, says here he suffered a fatal heart attack while attempting to enter the country from England and being taken aside for questioning by officials at the George Bush International Airport in Houston, Texas. Okay, that was in 1997, right after he had finished that documentary. I found a better source for that, all the information in that, and I'm going to play a little clip, and I want you to just pay attention to a couple of things that it brings out. The new phase of war, besides just the military's ground, naval, and air forces, there's a fourth dimension to war that is brought out in this documentary, and also what they term the strategy of tension, which is something to help keep the public manipulated to maintain a particular political ideology or political stability.
Worked in Italy on behalf of various US administrations for over 20 years.
Italy was a key element in the southern flank of NATO, and the Communist Party of Italy opposed every practical measure to strengthen NATO. So there was concrete evidence that Italy could not be a good NATO ally if the communists took control.
The nuclear stalemate and the rise of domestic communism saw the purpose of the stay-behind armies revised.
CIA was beginning to realize that these stay-behind operations were of no significance, except that they served as a network to keep strong anti-communist people together and to keep them motivated. It was almost like a club, a fraternal organization.
In 1965, the creme de la creme of the Italian right and the secret services met in a luxury hotel in Rome. This meeting of what was known as the Istituto Polio would radically alter Italian society.
It wasn't just far-right extremists there, but also political scientists, researchers of Revolutionary War, and officials of the Chiefs of Staff. So there were many, who believed that you needed to take preventative action against communism with all means available.
At Instituto Polio, the head of the army and the military secret services said very clearly what they wanted to do. They spoke of the fourth dimension of war. After the first phase of the ground war, the second phase of the Navy, the third phase of the Air Force, the fourth phase is the phase that deals with the conquest of the hearts and minds of the population. This is the war that was fought, and is still fought today, by means of low-intensity conflicts, even by means of what we define as terrorism.
Many different groups took an active role in this fourth phase of the fight against communism. Among them was the Italian stay-behind network Gladio, parts of which now became directly involved in domestic political subversion.
Of course, the individual militant or soldier from Gladio didn't know exactly who was above them in the hierarchy. But we know that the bosses of Gladio were in contact with those of the secret services, and this makes us think that perhaps there was this higher direction.
After the Polio meeting in Rome, Italy was hit by a series of bombings. At first, they caused only material damage, but with the Piazza Fontana massacre in 1969, one of the darkest periods of Italian history began. Some historians now believe it formed part of a semi-official secret project known as the Strategy of Tension.
The strategy of tension was a complex phenomenon in which the various figures operating didn't have the same objectives. There were groups from the extreme right who really wanted to destroy the democratic system with a coup. Alongside them were military commanders, parts of the secret services, and conservative forces in general, who were using this first group. Rather than a full-blown coup, they wanted a stabilization of the institutions of power.
Destabilize the public order, to stabilize the political order, and justify a repressive intervention that would be welcomed with relief by the population. People want to live in peace. They don't want to walk into a bank or get on a train and die because of a bomb put there by some unknown killer.
In Belgium, Police Commissioner Eddie Vos has come to a similar conclusion. He suspects the Brabant attacks were designed to create widespread fear.
Here in Belgium, we had soldiers in nearly all the car parks of the big supermarkets. We had to do our shopping with 2 snipers on the roof. We were extremely frightened. And that fits into this strategy, which was an important element of terrorism.
Belgium was scared. Once fear has been instilled in a population, you can make them do anything.
Okay, I'm going to pause right there. And just following forward with this group, many felt had finally been disbanded. This secret services maybe in the mid-90s, but then it morphed again. And I won't go into a lot of details here, but I would definitely highly recommend that you check out a couple of individuals that I found online that are really up on this. Sibel Edmonds is a former interpreter for the FBI. She found out about a lot of corruption, abuses, power, and tried to report it and was fired and ended up becoming a whistleblower, and ever since 2002 has organized different agencies to help get the word out of what is happening behind the scenes that is manipulating our geopolitical strategies around the world, because it's not just in Europe anymore. It involves the Asian Caucasus, which is all the way into even Western China. James Corbett from CorbettReport.com and Sybil together are networking with many other whistleblowers and people who are in the know of the things that are the currents, especially political currents that are manipulating or trying to manipulate, our public government officials worldwide. And I just want to recommend both of their websites, CorbettReport.com, Sybil's BoilingFrogsPost.com, and on there she's actually helping to not only inform people about what's going on, but help them know how to respond and organize themselves should they choose a course of action against some of this manipulation. So definitely check those guys out. I want to read something I came across recently here, a little article by a professor. His name is Jonathan Turley, okay? And he points out the whole military-industrial complex intertwined with the international bankers and how that it is a detriment to our society in so many ways. I'm not sure I'm going to read this all right here, but I would just check it out. I found it actually, of all places, on Al Jazeera's website, but just Google this Jonathan Turley. He's an excellent writer. He brings out many good points here. But he actually shows how, in his narrative, becoming a war-based economy that we are, the billions that go in trillions into our military budget, and how it has become a stabilizing factor in our economy, and one in which needs more war to be perpetrated in order to continually expand or be stable. And one of the things about it is, if you base your economy on the military or military spending, you're going to need more enemies. You're going to need to identify targets. And for instance, this is one paragraph alone. It is not just the defense and DHS departments that enjoy the war windfall. Take the Department of Justice, a massive counterterrorism system that has been created, employing tens of thousands of personnel with billions of dollars to search for domestic terrorists. The problem has been a comparative shortage of actual terrorists to justify the size of this internal security and all the funds that are going into it. Definitely worth a good purview about how we have basically sold ourselves to this military-industrial complex. It takes a different lens to be able to view through once you get into this. So I would take some time and study it. I'm definitely going to continue researching everything I can about San Bernardino, and I really appreciate again all of your comments, and found them most helpful and insightful. And I try to again respond, and I'll let you know as soon as I come across any new information. But once again, just want to leave you with that thought. Is what we're seeing in San Bernardino, is this part of the modern day Operation Gladio, to where we're being manipulated by international bankers, the military-industrial complex, to point us all towards a deadly confrontation in the Mideast right now, with all these other wars that are going on? Because if you look at what's happened ever since basically the end of October, with the Russian jetliner taken down, bringing in Russia, France and NATO being involved after the Paris attacks in mid-November, 1st of December, San Bernardino, and now there's other terrorist attacks happening or threats in China. It certainly seems that somebody is trying to bring a lot of factors into play that will cause a major conflict back in the Mideast, benefiting again defense contractors and the international bankers. And we need to pay attention. Is this how we want our future to continue? Because I've even heard of other conspiracies that take this to an entirely higher level. Once the war on terror is finally concluded, who's going to be the next enemy? And I've even heard conspirators talk about the aliens and this whole deception about aliens from everywhere, from the NASA studies of new planets sustaining life and new signals from space. That would be the next major funding windfall for the manufacturers to start building military to confront aliens. Okay, this is Don. Thanks again for watching.